Good morning, Dean. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Lisa. It's always great to be back and have another great conversation with you.
I appreciate that. So, I wanted to have you come back because you have something new to share, and we will get into that in just a minute. But just to remind people of your story, you are someone who has achieved great things. And most importantly, you've achieved creating a healthier body and mind through your swim across along the Willamette River. So, will you just remind us of that for just a moment?
Right, sure. Yeah, I was dying of leukemia and lymphoma in 2013. And the briefest way I can break it down is I knew that I had to have some kind of purpose or something to think about other than all I'd lost because previous to my cancer diagnosis, as is true so many times, 1 year before that, I'd lost my wife of 30 years to brain cancer. It absolutely devastated me. And so I was in terrible grief. That broke down my immune system, and I was doing very poorly. And my daughter was 21 at the time, and I didn't want her to lose both parents. So I knew I had to do something, and I'd helped many clients over the years come back using Viktor Frankl's work, where he emphasizes the more passionate you are about a purpose, the greater chance you have of overcoming whatever challenge it is. And so I looked for a purpose. It made absolutely no sense logically, but for 30 years, I'd always wanted to become the first person to swim the entire 187-mile length of the longest river in Oregon and the Willamette. And so I decided that that's exactly what I was going to do. And uh, that's what I did. Just doing the practice and the training for that gave me something to think about other than all I'd lost and everything I feared. And I decided to do it. Everybody, my doctors, my parents, everyone tried to talk me into waiting till I was in remission. But I thought, if I can accomplish this, then it inspires other cancer patients to refuse to be uh, bound by their diagnosis and defined by it. And so I did it. And the Willamette is largely a snowmelt river. So even though I did it in June, the first 16 days it was between 42 and 45 degrees, which some people think sounds really warm. But I challenge you, get in it and see how it feels. It's
Yes,
freezing.
it's freezing.
And I was,
I live along the Columbia, and
you
sometimes
know,
even, at the beginning of the summer, getting in and out of the boat, it hurts.
yeah,
It
yeah.
hurts, and not until August or so can I kinda stand around and wait in it, depending on where I am.
Right, right. Yeah, and so, spending 10 hours a day in it for 22 days was quite a challenge, and I was in a constant state of hypothermia, and little did I know because I'd never heard of Wim Hof or cold plunging or the science of cold water immersion. I didn't know that the entire time it was boosting my immune system. I didn't know anything about grounding or earthing and how that was happening the entire time. I didn't know anything about Blue Mind and how it eases trauma and releases and diminishes any kind of cortisol in your body. So I didn't know any of those sciences. I was just trying to fulfill a dream. And thankfully, that habitat, that environment is exactly what my body needed to heal. The first blood test I took after the swim, my leukemia had vanished without chemo or radiation.
Good thing you didn't wait till you were in remission for that.
Exactly.
Might never have come. Well, let's take a quick break, and we come back, I wanna get to the part that you're here to share today,
Sure.
which is your, well, you talked about some things, the science of healing and things what you were talking about just a moment ago, and I wanna get more into that for sure,
Sure.
because you mentioned some things that people may not have heard of, like you said, you hadn't heard of cold plunging until later, when you
Right.
started swimming the river, but we will talk about those things and then also talk about what you're now offering to people from afar because you can't sit in front of everyone that could be helped by you. So let's take a break.
Yep.
We'll be back with Dean Hall in just a moment. We are back with you, Dean Hall, and I wanted to talk about some of the topics you brought up, like
Sure.
grounding and the different things that you mentioned earlier in the first segment. And I think about things you're talking about eco psychology. That's really
Right.
what that falls under the umbrella of.
Sure.
Can you explain to people in a little more depth what that means? But I want to talk about some specific things like grounding, a couple of the other specific things that you mentioned. Um,
Sure.
so when we talk about grounding, explain to us what that exactly means.
Yeah, grounding is off of Clinton Ober's work. He wrote a book called Earthing. He found that he was just a cable guy, and he found that certain times in certain areas, as he'd go in and install cable, that the cable wouldn't, that signal wouldn't work as well. And so he started thinking about that, and he found that. Uh, Big duh, we are highly electrical. Our nervous system is bioelectricity. And if we grounded, we got healthier. And so he started getting people that he claims are much smarter than he to research this phenomenon. And they found, we've always known that we had millions of nerve endings in our feet, but we just thought, well, that's where the body stops. So the nerves have to stop somewhere. Little did we know that they were putting micro bursts of electricity out at all times, almost like a radar to suck up the Earth's natural energy or bioelectricity. As we go along in our life, we build up what's called positive ions. I wish it wasn't called positive ions because it's really negative.
I mean,
Bad.
sounds like a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're bad for you. The earth naturally generates negative ions, which are good for you. If you walk barefooted, then those nerve endings attract and even just kind of suck up the negative ions from the earth. And they found that within 2 to 3 minutes of being barefoot, we naturally discharge all the positive or that negative energy inside of our body. And they think a lot of the reasons so many people are anxious, depressed, addicted is because we're living in concrete jungles with rubber soled shoes. Our bodies aren't able to discharge naturally.
Well,
So that's
my
the
question.
basic.
That's my
Mhm.
question then. So you bring that up. Let me give an example. It must or does it matter where we put our feet? Now, obviously, walking across a concrete parking lot is not the same as walking across a grassy field. And I know that you do you're in the forest, deep in the forest, at least every Friday still.
Right, right,
And so you could walk anywhere out there and you're going to be touching all the things that the earth provides.
right.
So for example, I think about barefoot golfing sometimes.
Sure.
But the pesticides on a golf course get in the way of that for me.
Yeah.
However, that is a good part of my day that I could at least ground part of the time.
Sure.
So, is there a negative response to walking somewhere that isn't the healthiest land we could walk on? Or is the
Well,
grounding itself what's important?
yeah. I wouldn't say it's an either or. I think be responsible and find good ways to interact and counteract those kinds of situations. What they found, and they don't know if it's because there was a lack of research in the 50s and 60s, or just now a preponderance of people getting sick and getting cancer. But they think a lot of the reason for the uptake in not only cancers but anxiety, depression, addiction. Of course, the research is a bit fuzzy, is because in the mid to late 50s, they started making all shoes with rubber soles. And then we can't connect in a grounding sort of way. And so, what I do when I'm out and it's too muddy or like now it's snowy, I had a guy make me a pair of moccasins that are all leather, no synthetics. Even some of the major brands of moccasins will put like a foam on the bottom or a rubber sole or insole. And so if you were to play golf indigenous golf, where you got some moccasins on, you'd still be grounding very efficiently without getting the toxins on your feet. And then
That is a good idea. I actually will take you up on that because it's something that I
plus
think about every time I'm out there.
you'll be the talk of your golf club.
Right? Well, and the thing is like it is that's why it's so important to have you available and what we're going to talk about in the next segment
Sure,
and how you're going to offer yourself to a world that otherwise would not be able to sit in your office because there's more
right,
people you can reach and they need to know what you know.
sure.
But, just taking that one question that I had for you that I've had for a while, and hearing that there's a solution for that. There is a solution and you cannot take everyone deep into the wilderness with you every Friday. I know you've taken some of your clients out into the woods, to
Yeah,
help them. And you've talked a lot about how in therapy, as soon as we sit down, we're in the second most vulnerable position, and it's not ideal for therapy, a therapy
not at
setting,
all.
be
Right.
walking, moving forward. And so that's part of what you're also trying to do is, at least for your practice, is change how you do it based on the newer information. And
Exactly.
what we know, when we know better, we do better, right?
Right. And I believe the way we've been doing therapy since Freud, even though most of us aren't Freudian therapists anymore, we're still doing it the way he did in 1890. What? What else do we do that they did in 1890? And that is bring them in, sit them down, have them talk. And the unconscious mind, where you hold all your long-term memory and all your emotions, isn't verbal. It doesn't understand language. So I believe the way we do therapy now, traditional therapy, is obsolete. We've got to be up. We've got to be moving forward. The number one most powerful position is up and walking forward, and then connecting with nature. Even if we're still talking like we would with a therapist, that is much more efficient, I've found, and much more reliable to not only decompress trauma, but then have great insight and leaps in therapy. I can accomplish in 3 or 4 days out in the woods what I could in 3 or 4 months, if not more, in an office.
Well, let's talk about that as well. So many of us work in an office. This is my office. It's like one
Mhm.
of the rooms in my house. And so I try to figure out what can I do to at least move while I work. So I have a desk
Right.
treadmill right there. And I make sure I make a great effort to at least 3 days a week work from there. And it's made specifically for walking and working. So it doesn't incline. It only goes 4 miles per hour. It's actually connected to the desk. It's not just the pad at the bottom.
Oh, nice.
And so I can count my steps. I know when I walk my 4 miles, I'm good, at least the 4 miles. And it goes by so fast, just like sitting down here goes by fast. If I sit
Right.
down, it goes fast. If I walk, it goes fast too.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a way for us to think about our own environment. I've seen people put, some kind of walker thing under their desk or just do something to keep your body moving. And when I work from my desk treadmill, I have to pick and choose what I do from there. Original graphic design is a little hard because it's detailed and your body's moving. But some of the most creative things I do from there. And
Yeah.
it's better than it's better for me to be walking and thinking and being creative. It helps a lot to get it all done. And so a lot of people have reached out to me, what is the deal with this treadmill? How do you walk and work? And how do you do it? And I think, well, you just have to practice.
Right.
Just
Right.
like
Like anything.
you just have
The other thing I do is I got a canopy on my pergola, and we open up in our backyard to a nice green space. And it's rare. Even I got a little space heater. I mean, I might be out there at 27 degrees, but then I'm hearing the birds and I'm feeling the temperatures, and it makes it so much more fun. Plus, it also gives me a bit of a division between my workspace and my home space.
true.
So
Yeah.
I think that's, if at all you can develop an what I call an outdoor office.
Yes.
I think that's, even if you don't use it every day, it's a good alternative.
Yeah, even just sitting at your patio table is better than,
Right.
sitting in sight
Always.
at your kitchen counter. Okay, let's take a break. We come back. I want to tell everyone how they can work and learn from you. Work with you and learn from you. We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, Dean. So you and I have been in touch for a couple of years now. I learned so
Yeah.
much from you every time we talk.
Oh, thank you.
You and my son have even befriended each other, which is lovely.
Yeah.
Um,
He's
so
great, by
let's,
the way.
yeah, thanks. So let's talk about um, how what you've been working on for the last year and how that impacts the people watching today and the 200,000 plus people or however many it is you have following you on Instagram now. I mean, good
Sure.
for you.
Yeah. Yeah, the most frequent DM I've been getting on Instagram for the last 2 years is, "Ah, that's all fine for you, Dean. You live in Oregon. You can go anywhere. I live in Indiana, or I live in India, or who knows where." And I found it very hard to help them because I don't know their personality and their preferences. I don't know their fitness level. And I definitely don't know their geography. And you really have to know those things in order to encourage people in a way that makes sense for them how to get out and connect with nature because we're all different. Some people, like my mother, would love to go gardening, whereas she wouldn't wanna go whitewater kayaking. Okay? Both of them are very helpful, but it depends on your personality, your age, your fitness level. So, I worked really hard, got back into my nerdy research clinical brain, and developed a personality type test and, one that encourages or kinda teases out what your belief systems and the way you connect with nature fits into your personality. Then also, I've asked certain questions that kind of tease out your fitness level. And then after that is after we get the results from that, it fits you into one of 7 profiles, actually a percentage of those profiles. Then I have AI take a look at your percentages, and it then will suggest what are the best rewilding or nature connection strategies for you. After we get that, I have AI analyze within a 50-mile radius of your home to tell you exactly where it is best for you to go.
Wow.
And so Natura stands for Nature Adaptive Therapy Unifying Rewilding and AI. And just serendipitously, Natura is the Roman goddess who stood for Mother Earth. Didn't know that until I was just Googling to see if anybody'd ever used that brand name.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's amazing. You know, the thing I love about this too is that people watching right now today can go to your well, we'll put it on the screen so they'll know where to find
mhm,
you. But you have the ability now to help people wherever they are in the entire world. So,
exactly.
you know, it's true because I can tell you that going deep in the forest for me would cause me so much anxiety about
Exactly.
theirs that it wouldn't do me any good. It wouldn't do me
Yep.
any good. But there's so many places I could go, and I live in a beautiful place. I'm blessed that way.
Sure.
But you're right. Some people, the 50-mile radius is doable in a day.
Right.
In
Right.
a day.
Yeah. I mean, it's an hour away from where I go. And that's why I only go out there once a week. But yeah, we've got to find ways that make sense to each person. And everybody's so different, but it's just so important to me. My mission on earth is to help people be happy and healthy. And I don't think you can be either if you're not connected to your natural environment or the source, and that is nature.
You know, and some people live where they live for the purpose of their health. For the when I chose to move to Wenatchee, I moved here from Houston when my husband passed away, but I had been in the Wenatchee greater area. But when I came here and I drove down the hill out of Leavenworth and the sky parted, I just said, we have to move here. And my husband only passed 4 months.
Well, it is a little bit of heaven
It is a
for
little bit of
sure.
heaven. And so what I thought to myself is, where would Wesley want to live? You know, we live
Mhm,
where we live because of his career and his job, and we were blessed by it.
mhm,
But
mhm.
if we could live anywhere we wanted, where would that be? and it's
Mhm.
right here. And it was a
Wow.
big decision. You know, you make a decision and they tell you don't make decisions like that within the first year
Right.
after someone passes. But I thought, well, if it doesn't work, we'll just move back. And we've been here 20 years. So
Right.
I think
Nice.
that, that's a luxury because I work from
Mhm.
anywhere. I mean, but
Right.
I understand living in Houston for our job and we can't just
Right.
move to where it feels pretty. But
Mhm.
most definitely, I think that you giving people an opportunity to drive from where they are to experience some other place in some other way is genius and very
Yeah, it
cool.
oh, good. It seems like it to me. And, I asked AI, "Compare this to the world's best wellness evaluations." And AI actually said, "Dean, I cannot compare it because it's more individual and you're pioneering a new field." And my first response to that was, "Oh, what a load of BS. You're just schmoozing me." And then I thought, "Wait a minute, it's a computer. It wouldn't schmooze me."
Yes,
So I got pretty excited then to know that I'm doing something that is cutting edge and will hopefully be helpful for people around the world.
it's legacy work, Dean.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
It's
Yeah.
legacy work.
And I'm really excited about next generation, people like your son that are just excited about life, excited about getting more connected with nature, trying to optimize his health. And what I'm looking for is this year, I'm really going to be working one on one with people using Natura. And then I hope to take people like your son and teach them how to do what I do with very simple structures so that they don't have to go to graduate school and they can basically, it's finding ways to clone younger, better looking versions of me. Mm.
Well, I'm sure Hunter will be excited to talk to you about that. I
Yeah,
thank
and
you
he's
very
certainly
much.
younger and better looking. I mean, let's be honest.
Let's have youth on his side. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I wish you the very best with this. And
Oh,
let's
thank
have
you.
you back in a while and maybe share some of your clients' success stories and have some people on
Yeah,
with you.
I'd
Okay.
love to.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.